Police officers and first responders wear badges to let their communities know they are here to protect and serve. But it comes at a price. Samantha Horwitz and John Salerno work with police departments across the country to bring valuable recovery, insight resources, and workshops. A Badge of Honor TV brings those professionals to you so we can come together and revitalize communities through a better understanding of what's at stake and what's required for repair. So take a load off and turn up your TV. It's about to get real.
Hey, welcome to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam. We are proudly partnered with the OBBM network and can be found on all your social media live streaming networks across your live streaming platforms. Sam, what's going on? Got some stuff to bring up, so just how you doing?
Yeah, things are great. If Facebook is not currently working, definitely apologize right now. I just got a message from StreamYard that there may be an...
Lost your audio.
Okay, am I back?
Yep.
We are definitely over on Instagram. Yeah, I got a red exclamation point. So apologies for Facebook. You know, it happens.
It happens. I shared it onto my page from Facebook. So Technology drives us nuts every once in a while. But yeah, John, what's first off,
New York.
Yeah. A couple of things with New York, the NYPD. The first thing I want to do is I want to send our thoughts and condolences to the boys out in the 7-9 precinct. You know, these heroes that don a uniform each and every day for our city are also donning a uniform each and every day for our country. And one of the officers from the 7-9 precinct deployed in this Iran conflict. He was over in Kuwait and he passed away due to a medical emergency. They're not saying exactly what it was, but you know what? It doesn't matter on the manner of which he died. It matters in the manner of which he lived. And he's a true hero, fighting crime in the city and fighting the war on terror for our country. So God bless that officer from the 7-9 precinct. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Another big kudos goes out to, you know, those men and women that stopped the terrorist attack. You know, we had a real IED. You know, they kind of turned around and said, oh, it was only a smoke canister, it was only this, but it turned out to be a real IED that could have caused major havoc and a lot of injuries and a lot of deaths. But the NYPD was on the ball. They got the two guys, and thank God that IED did not go off and injure a lot of people. And you know what? It's because of men and women that will put themselves in harm's way and risk their own lives for the lives of a stranger, which causes, you know, for the civilian world, you don't know this, but it causes a lot of mental stress. It impacts what your mind thinks of each and every day, and it puts you into a hypervigilant state. And we need to recognize that many of these officers, if not all, are dealing with some sort of post-traumatic injury or brain injury because of the things that they see each and every day. And our guests are going to talk about that in detail as we get with them.
Absolutely, John. I mean, I don't think, well, after 9/11, kind of like the illusion of nothing as serious as that ever happening anywhere in the U.S. Was kind of put to rest. And now we're seeing these IEDs. We had the Boston bombing, and NYPD, the folks out there on the street, it leaves a lasting effect and a lasting impression. And our guests tonight, Dr. Stacy Raymond and Peter Elste, he's currently an officer, are going to talk about those lasting effects. And we're actually going to see some EMDR on a video, the two of them in a session. So let's welcome Dr. Stacy Raymond and Officer Pete Elste. Welcome to A Badge of Honor TV, you guys.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
What a pleasure.
Yeah. So, Dr. Stacy, we'll start with you. Tell everybody watching and listening on their favorite podcast app a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. I am the daughter of a police officer. He's retired. He's also a Marine. And so I would say that was my first exposure to dealing with police. And I was always proud of my dad and everything that he had to deal with. And he definitely struggled and continues to deal with post-traumatic stress, because back in the day, he never, that age group, he's 89, going to turn 90. They just didn't talk about it. They just swallowed it and carried on, suck it up. Drank it. Buttercup. Actually, he didn't drink. No. He lost an older brother to World War II. He was on a submarine for months, and then he drank himself to death. And so that gave Dad something to think about. Like, alcohol is not the solution. So I'm proud of him for that. Yes. Absolutely. And so I'm a clinical psychologist. I work in Ridgefield, Connecticut. I've been here for 27 years, and my work has become trauma related. And it's not surprising that I end up working mostly with police and veterans. I also work with other first responders as well, and civilians, and the civilians have trauma as well. So I would say the most popular diagnosis is post-traumatic stress. We like to call it an injury, because if you have a disorder, it makes you feel like you can't ever recover from it. You're stuck with it for life. Like attention deficit disorder tends not to go away, right? You just have to medicate it, or you deal with it without any medication. So we call it post-traumatic stress injury on our podcast, which is Responder Resilience Podcast. And so I do a podcast. We have one weekly. I'm one of the co-hosts with David Dashinger, who's a retired fire lieutenant, and Bonnie Rumley, who is a social worker and an EMT. So my main tool is EMDR therapy. So eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a mouthful. It's not a great name for a very good technique. And you're going to see some clips of that today, actually in session with Pete, who has, he has a career of bad incidents. And also, and this is what my most recent book is about, Dump the Bucket. It's about pointing out that a lot of police also come from childhood injuries, meaning emotional injuries typically. So adverse childhood experiences. And people haven't really looked at that and made a correlation between therapy avoidance. But my research has confirmed that, and I can talk about that later. So that's me.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you calling it injury. We talked about in our workshops, and we got to have David on a season 1. So that was a great conversation. But we call it an injury because that's truly what it is. The stigma that comes with that the disorder, will keep people from coming to talk to you, certainly. And it is important to understand kind of where all the disorders come from. That book, the DSM-5, that has codes in it, and that's how practitioners get paid in essence. And if it was way before our time, when this thing was first presented or coming about,
1980. It came out because of the Vietnam veterans. They were presenting with what used to be called shell shock, and then they wanted to give it a formal name. And unfortunately, they called it a disorder. Right. And unfortunately, that leads people to believe that they're stuck with it for life. And it's an example of that. You can get over it.
Yeah, well, tag Pete, you're it. So tell everybody watching and listening on their favorite podcast app a little bit about you and your background.
Well, let's see. My name is Pete Elste. In the year 2000, I became an NYPD officer. Worked at the 73rd Precinct for about approximately 3 to 4 years. That's where I learned to be a cop. Very grateful for that. And then came out to Danbury, Connecticut, where I raised a family and stuff. Within that, I have 23 years here now. So within the 23 years, I became a dispatcher. I became a field training officer, crisis intervention team coordinator. I'm on the peer support team. I was on the ESU team up here.
SWAT.
Which is SWAT.
Oh.
The sniper and entry team guy. Basically man of many hats, and I went to rehab twice for alcoholism. Didn't think I had it, which I've been sober 6 years now, with the help of Stacy and with EMDR and stuff like that. I got connected with her, I think, after the second time.
Yeah,
time.
They needed you to, in order to be discharged, you had to have a therapist to go to. And you came reluctantly.
Yeah. She helped me out with
he was going to say forced.
No, it wasn't forced. You learn a lot when you go to you go to a rehab that has a first responder, I would say clientele, but structure.
That was the second rehab.
Yeah, the second rehab. The first one, not so much. The second rehab, when I relapsed, it was a good first responder structure. And that's where I knew I wasn't alone, and built the structure, got connected with Stacy, found some classes to go to here, AA meetings. And then we knew that there was something else going on in the brain from past experiences, whether it was childhood, whether it was from New York or even in Danbury. There's a lot of stuff in here. Worked on it. EMDR does work, but you got to make it work.
Well, thank you for sharing that, especially about your recovery. So congratulations on 6 years. I think that's a very important place to start after we take our first break, because a lot, and certainly here in Texas, we hear a lot more of the fire guys going to, dry out, going to get help. Not so much with the police. So I think this is it's a great jumping off point. But we got to take our first break, and we'll be right back with Dr. Stacy Raymond and Officer Pete Elste. Stay tuned, everybody.
When you choose Patriot Mobile, you're not just picking a wireless provider. You're choosing a company that shares your values. It's easy to switch, and you can keep your number, your phone, and most importantly, your values. With Patriot Mobile, you get the power of nationwide coverage on all 3 major networks. That means wherever life takes you, we've got you covered on the same reliable networks you already know and trust. And when you need us, we're here for you right here at home. Our customer service is 100% US-based, because we believe that support should come from people who understand you and your values. At Patriot Mobile, you're not just another call, you're a priority. In today's world, where you spend your money matters more than ever, every dollar is a vote for the kind of future you want to build. Join the thousands of Americans making a difference with every call, every text, and every connection. Choose a company that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Hey, John, when was the last time you had free mobile service?
I have never had free mobile service.
When was the last time one of the big 3, I won't name them, but everybody can imagine who they are in mobile world, gave you a discount for being a first responder?
Nope.
Yeah. So Patriot Mobile cares about the first responders, their families, our veterans, our soldiers, everybody on active duty, their family members. This is what Patriot Mobile is about. It's about supporting the men and women that protect us, and also the family members of. So 972 Patriot, tell them a badge of honor sent you, and you will get a free month of service to try it out. They use the big 3's towers, so you don't lose anything. Except for money, I guess. So 972 Patriot, tell them a badge of honor sent you. Or if you just want to go online, patriotmobile.com/badge. Same thing. You'll get a member of the Patriot Mobile team from Texas, by the way, that will give you a call back and get you set up. So you as a first responder get a discount. You as a veteran get a discount. You as a current active duty member get a discount.
You get one, and you get one.
You get one. You, and anybody related that lives in the home, kids, wife, spouse are included in that. So again, patriotmobile.com/badge. Now back to the show.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor TV. We were speaking to Dr. Stacy Raymond and Officer Pete Elste, right? Elste?
You got it.
I get it. I'm getting better with names. Elsie, before we took the break, we were discussing some childhood incidents. We were talking about EMDR. And, it amazed me. And Pete, this is one thing that, you said you went to therapy twice. I went to therapy once. I went over into Utah for 30 days, and we did NAA and AA and stuff. And it's such a small world that I hear that you went to therapy, you went into in-house counseling. How many, out of the 900,000 officers out here that are, fighting for our country and our cities and states, so many of them are battling. We're just meeting. We were in neighboring precincts, and here we see that we are suffering those same mental health injuries that so many are battling alone. And that's why I'm glad you're bringing out your story, and I really do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And Dr. Stacy, with EMDR, when I went to therapy, the EMDR did not work for me, and this is why it's so important to get somebody who is clinically competent to perform these techniques, because you can just go to any therapist that just got out of high school or just got out of college, and they're gonna, they learn the clappers.
High school.
Well, they learn the clappers, they learn the tapping, but they don't know the questions to ask. They don't know how to dig deep into a meaningful EMDR session. And I think that's what my issues were.
Or deal with the responses. Deal
Yeah.
with your responses, because they don't recognize it. So
Correct.
yeah, let's
dive into
we're
that.
talking about the addiction part. So
okay.
Pete, expand a little bit. We know that cops like to drink to make their days go away. It is culturally acceptable, because it's been since we were young. Any TV show you turned on, it was there, right? So we already know it's in the culture. So we think it's like, okay. At what point did you realize, oh shoot, I'm not okay, and going to rehab? That's a tough decision.
Yeah, there's like I told you earlier today when we just hooked up on the screen. I just flew in from New Orleans. I was at the Chiefs convention for health and wellness, and we myself, the active deputy chief, and the retired deputy chief from Danbury, we do a speech, and we do a segment for an hour and a half about what happened in the department between the retired deputy chief, the active deputy chief, who is he's not an alcoholic, and then me, who was the problem child. How did I know? I mean, how did it all come about? The things I did, like missing 50 shifts of overtime, calling out sick. Think I had a problem. Coming in, maybe not 100%. People coming up to me asking me if I'm all right, and I'm like, yeah, no worries. I would call out sick, 4 days, and come back the fifth day to make sure everybody knew I was all right. But when the deputy chief came to my house unofficially, saw me, and then came back to my house another time officially when he was in internal affairs, I still didn't think I had a problem. I got pulled out by my 4 to 12 shift. I passed out in my car on my off day at a gas station. And then the 4 to 12 shift, you know what happens when you call in somebody's plate number and it comes back, oh, it's registered to Pete Elste. Well, that's one of ours. The whole shift is coming. So the whole shift is there, and they're pulling me out of the car, and I'm passed out. They drove me home. They did that. They did a couple of, they made sure I didn't leave the house. It was more that the intervention of certain people came to me and said, listen, you need to go away. And I went away like I said, I went away the first time. It didn't really grasp, because there was really no structure. but the place in Pennsylvania did a great job. Like I said earlier today, I was with other first responders and I wasn't alone. I was hearing their stories. I was hearing firemen stories. I was hearing EMS stories. I was hearing other cop stories from other towns, from other states. And I was like, shit, that's me. And that's them. And we connected. And then I came back and I hooked up with, I connected with Stacy. You know, I actually, to correct everything we were talking about off screen, I actually connected with Stacy the first time I went to rehab. And when I came back, I relapsed. And the relapse happened because a lot of negativity in the department. You know, they're out to get you. The admin's this, the admin's that. When actually, in the big picture, they were actually trying to help me. They were actually like it was called. They were trying to get me to own my stuff, to take accountability.
Yeah.
So taking extreme ownership of me. You know what?
That's not easy.
Yeah,
that's not easy to do.
It's not. It's like, you know, why are they coming out to get me? They're actually supporting me. Like they did, you know, like the new chief didn't know who I was. You know, I had people supporting me saying, this is a good cop. Just give him a chance. And then, you know, with Stacy, the first time I would see her, I would sometimes come in hungover to see her. And we talked and this, that, and another thing. And then I relapsed and I went away the second time again to Pennsylvania. And then she introduced EMDR. But the only way EMDR works is if you're sober.
You have to be sober. Yeah.
You have to be sober.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I had to kick that. And coming out of rehab, I said, you know, I'm going to do this. And I built my circle. I built my support group. Stacy was a big part of it, you know, kept me in check, going to see her. And then the department came up with something. I don't know if you were part of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. She was.
Are you talking about
the seeing you twice a month and seeing the alcohol counselor twice a month?
Yeah. I had to see you every week, and I had to tell your chief that yes, he showed up and he participated. No other information, and the chief wasn't looking for other information.
So if I actually listened to all the negativity, the people that had problems with the administration, and they were using me to say, hey, you know, they're out to get you again. Don't sign that. It's a last chance agreement. It wasn't. It was that I lost my structure. I lost my accountability, and I needed to bring it back. So that piece of paper of going to see Stacy and going to see an alcohol counselor was the structure and the accountability that I needed, you know, and that's where I am now.
But you know, that takes a good chief.
It does take a good chief. I was just going to say that the support system, having your team and building in the accountability, that is an excellent chief. You know, when we come back from our next break, let's jump into the EMDR, because after you got sober, you're right. You have to be sober. You cannot have alcohol influencing you and try to do EMDR. We'll talk about that, and then we'll show a clip of you guys in session together. We do have permission, and I'll say it again before we show the clip. Let's take our next break. We'll be right back, everybody.
Look, when you need to respond to an aggressive situation to protect yourself, your family, or your property, understanding your firearm and legal position are critical. Officers know your skills are only as good as your commitment to training. So know what you're doing. So when you're in a vulnerable situation, we can count on your response. Whether you're a beginner or a licensed gun carrier, Carry in Texas offers basic firearms training, Texas permitless carry courses, license to carry, and basic 2A courses so you can understand the responsibilities, situational awareness, and learn the technical skill required when you carry your firearm. Go to carryintexas.com to find the right course for you. Join me, former United States Secret Service agent Samantha Horwitz, on the range for beginner basics, LTC prep, and range practice. Go to carryintexas.com today. That's carryintexas.com.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge Amount of TV with John and Sam, and our guest, Dr. Stacy Raymond, and Officer Pete Elste. Before we left for that break, we were talking about alcoholism and addictions that run not only in alcohol, with narcotics, and they can run the whole gamut of different types of addictions that can cause a disruption in your life. I'm glad you had Chiefs Pete that said, hey, he's a good cop, let's not toss him away like so many chiefs do. They'll toss away good cops because they're faltering or they're battling. They don't see through the big picture. So kudos to those people that were out there to support you. That's a huge step, and see where you are today. It's amazing.
Not seeing it as a disciplinary issue. He was AWOL for 4 days, and he had failed an appointment with me. I look on my, contact sheet that I have for Pete. It says, his sergeant, I have permission to call I called his sergeant. Sergeant was like, I was going to call you and ask where Pete is. And so we ended up doing an intervention that day. Like, I canceled the rest of my day. I met the sergeant at the PD, and we had made a plan as we were driving over to Pete's house, to just first off, we were worried if he was still around. And when he didn't come to the door right away, the sergeant knocked, we waited, my heart went up into my throat. He said, if he doesn't come to the door, I'm going to have to make entry, and then Pete showed up, and he looked like shit. So, but we were glad. I was glad that he was alive, because you just have your mind goes to the worst place, because it's uncharacteristic of Pete. He never failed an appointment. He never took 4 days off without calling in.
Right.
So this was new behavior. And then as a psychologist, I'm thinking, all right, how far did this go? How extreme did this get?
Absolutely.
And kudos to you, Stacy, because many psychologists or counselors aren't going to take that extra step, and I thank you for that as well, because this is what I mean about a proper therapist treating our first responders. It's not somebody that's only going to be there in a 40 or 50-minute therapy session. It's somebody that's going to be there 24/7 to get you through the battles. So I do appreciate you as well for doing what you do for our first responders.
That's why with culturally competent therapists, like, you understand the population. You understand that police will take their lives, more so than firefighters and dispatchers, EMTs, paramedics, animal control. That's what the numbers show, right? And there's a shame that they deal with if they can't deal with their problems. And some of my research, talks to that. But I think Sam had you wanted to show some clips about EMDR.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can do that, but since we're focused and talking about culturally competent counselors, there are so many times, John's had it before, I've had it, where we'll be at a conference or a convention, and you have a group of, I'll say, younger therapists that want to help. From their heart, they're well-meaning. They want to help first responders, veterans. And the first question that we always ask is, do you come from a family of first responders or veterans? And most of the time they say no. And then the follow-up is like, well, why do you want to work with them? They are truly passionate about, they support that community. They're not like, there's a lot of counselors out there that say what you will. They have different color hair and espouse different beliefs, but they bring that into therapy instead of being neutral, which they're supposed to be. So they want to support us as first responders. Right. And John and I, we kind of let them down a little bit to say, well, hey, you need a lot of hours under your belt. Right. Either working with,
do a ride along, do a month of ride along.
I was just about to speak to that. I did I became involved with the peer support group or the peer support team for Pete's PD, and I made it a point to go on a ride along with every member of that department, even the midnight shift. I rode with them. And we had a detective, and I spent a couple hours up, just whatever he could show me, in the detective bureau, I could learn from that. And then I had, the deputy chief for the fire department. He said, you need to go to Citizen Police Academy. They have it at that department. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and I learned a tremendous amount. You know, what police have to deal with, all the report writing, you know, the firearms training, tasers, you know, the canine officer, like the SWAT team. It just, you know, things that I may not have thought about. And, you know, it does help that I'm the daughter of a police officer, right? So I'm comfortable with, you know, an officer in uniform and carrying a weapon. There are therapists, if you're not comfortable with, you know, a police officer coming in and carrying, and you get a lot of that kind of in Connecticut, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe not so much in Texas where you are, but
the therapists carry in Texas.
Yeah, even the therapist. So I get that. But if the therapist has an issue with it, and a lot of it has to do with Sandy Hook, you know, the mass shooting that happened, and people being really down on guns, and but if you're going to work with cops, you got to be comfortable that they're coming in and they're carrying.
Yep.
And so responder resilience team. So that's Lieutenant David Dashninger. He's retired. Myself, awesome. and Bonnie Rumley. She's a therapist as well and an EMT. We decided to write this book based on our podcast interviews. We had a series called the Master Clinicians series. And so we had master clinicians dealing with police, dealing with fire, dealing with EMS, so on and so forth, veterans, etc. And there's a chapter on each of those subspecialties. There's a lot of overlap, because, you know, you're dealing with the rescuers, you know, you're dealing with the helpers, and you have to know their language. You have to know how they present. Therapy is very different with first responders and veterans. It just is. And so, if, you know, it's very naive if you're a therapist and you think you can just walk in and do therapy with police.
You know, Stacy, with that EMDR video that we're going to see, you know, Pete mentions one thing that Pete, you said you walked a foot post in a 7.3. Now, you know, without even any of the trauma that surrounds every police officer each and every day, getting off on the corner of St. Mark's and wherever in the 7.3 precinct is a trauma of itself.
Just walking out.
Truthfully, you know, especially being a young officer out there a week and they throw you into the fire, believe it or not. And I know, like in the 7.7, the 7.5, the 7.3, we were all Brooklyn North squished together. Probably had the highest homicide rate in the city back then. And you know, we didn't cover huge miles. This was 3 and 4 square mile precincts that you really had to be in a hyper vigilant state for those 8 hours and 25 minutes while you were on the foot post. That means if nothing ever happened, your brain is in constant mode of just protection and scanning and looking at even the silliest things, because there's a constant threat while you're walking those foot posts. So, you know, it's not only the traumas, it's the environment that you're in as well.
Yeah. I mean, you're taking somebody straight out of the academy, you know, which was in Manhattan when I went. Yep. And then you're taking them and putting them on Thomas Boylan and Livonia or, you know, East New York Street, and you're saying, hey, you got to walk the foot post and whatever. You know, I was born and raised in Queens, in Middle Village, Queens.
Throwing you into the lion's den.
I'm like,
it was a different world.
There it is, the lion's den. You know, and the traumas that you see, or the hypervigilance that you got to have, and the head on a swivel and everything else. And now you have 27 years of that. You know, you need the help of a good therapist. And, you know, I'll say this, and I say it in the speeches that I do, in the classes and the conferences. When first responders should look for a therapist, you know, I was blessed to have Stacy. She knew my background. I was a police officer. You know, I was a police officer in New York City. I was a police officer in Danbury. She knew my background because her dad was a police officer. I felt more comfortable. I felt that I'm going to get the best out of her. And not taking away from anybody. Listen, it's who you are. So I tell first responders when I talk with peer support, I say, if you're going to look for a therapist, make sure they understand you, your family life, and they understand the job that you do. If you don't have both, me personally, it didn't work for me. I found Stacy, it works, and I'm still alive today.
Key factors.
Absolutely.
Can I show you the brain of a police officer who's been on the job?
Not mine.
No. So
I had a brain scan done. Yeah.
This is courtesy of Dr. Lansing.
Yeah.
It's a SPECT scan, and the red areas are the areas that are overworking, right? So it's really, this is because of all the cortisol that is released, and they're sitting in cortisol and adrenaline most of the day. Okay. And then when traumas happen, there could be the child death, there could be a domestic, there could be a homicide, something incredibly grueling. All of these memories go into the bucket, which is, my other book is called Dump the Bucket. So eventually you have to get rid of this, or else this is just going to keep your brain on fire. This is after one session of EMDR. You can see that the red areas have calmed down, right? Those were active before. So we're talking about a police officer at rest, like in the therapist's office. Nothing bad is happening. Now, they're probably anxious because they're in a vulnerable situation. They don't want to talk. And EMDR it's not really a talk therapy.
Right.
It's a body-based therapy. So we call it a bottom-up therapy, but we can talk more about that.
Yeah.
Sure. So let's go into that video. So just hang tight as I get this queued up here.
As Sam brings in the EMDR video, thank you, Stacy, for showing that, because that really gives a visual to our non-first responders and people that are looking and watching to this podcast. They see that cortisol dump. They see what EMDR can do to stop that cortisol, because that turns too much cortisol is going to cause medical problems.
It's the basis of inflammation, and then the brain becomes inflamed, and then you have hyperstartle. You have quick to anger issues. You have,
and then you run out of cortisol, and then you run on adrenaline, and then the doctor says, "Oh, Sam, your adrenal system is shot. We need to talk." Yeah.
Or you fall asleep. When you go home, it's the biological roller coaster, right? The hypervigilant biological by Dr. Gil Martin, right? So you're up and you're funny and you're really feeling great because you're at work and like your adrenaline's pumping. Then you go home
and you crash.
And now you're a couch potato, and the spouse is like, "Hey, what's going on?" Nothing. It seems like you're bothered by something. No, I'm fine. That was Pete's go-to when he came to the door finally, when we were standing there, me and his sergeant, and I was like, "How you doing, Pete?" Because he looked horrible. Yeah, he said, "I'm fine." And then I confronted him. I said, "You don't look fine. You've been AWOL from work. Can we come in and talk?" Yeah. And he just sort of held the door open, and we went in, and we were in there for 90 minutes. It took 90 minutes for us to convince him, "You need to go to rehab." He had every excuse in the book.
Well, glad you stuck with it. I got this video ready to go. So
all right.
Set some context here.
What you are about to see is an EMDR session with Danbury, Connecticut police officer Pete Elste, conducted by Dr. Stacy Raymond. In this session, Pete has 1 week on the job at NYPD. He was walking a footbeat alone in the 73rd Precinct in Brooklyn. Upon arrival, he found a vicious dog behind a gated area growling at him. The dog had a deceased infant in its mouth. Pete's daughter had just been born and was approximately the same size as the infant in the dog's mouth. Pete ultimately radioed for assistance.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit so we can get to the paddles so people can see, because you guys are talking about the incident. And here we go.
Confused.
Okay. Where in your body do you feel the confused feeling the most?
In my head.
All right. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst confusion, what number is it right now for you?
7.
Okay. All right. And what is the negative belief about yourself that goes with the worst part of that image?
Not knowing what to do.
Okay, can you put that in an I statement, please? Start it with the word I.
I'm new. I don't know what to do.
Okay, all right.
All right, so we'll just stop it there and kind of break this down. So, Dr. Stacy, Pete has paddles in his hand. Can you just explain first? So
I'm going to get them. They're in my office right now.
Yeah, this might be somebody's first intro. Like they've heard about this thing called EMDR and what it exactly looks like. Yeah.
So, eye movement desensitization, we bring that 7 down as far as we can. We hope to get it to a 0, but it doesn't always go to a 0, and that's okay. And then what happens is, as the intensity of whatever the emotion is, for him it was the confusion. As it comes down, the reprocessing happens. He may recall different things, from the scene. He may start thinking differently about himself, because it's no longer stuck in the limbic system, which is the fight or flight part of the brain. So why am I not doing eye movements with Pete? Okay. And after this was released in the late 80s, it was discovered that he had a lot of therapists that were doing this,
Right.
In order to do bilateral stimulation. Well, it was discovered that if the client holds one of these in each hand, it buzzes, I turned it on, it buzzes alternatively left and right. It's also bilateral stimulation. I could have put a headset on Pete and have a tone bilateral in each ear, right? So there are different ways to have bilateral stimulation.
Sure.
And I find that the paddles work really well. It's easy. I don't have to pull up my chair and do this.
Yeah.
I can just hand these to Pete. I can sit back, because also with first responders and veterans, they don't want you. I can just sense that if you're sitting too close, that there's a tension there, right? So there has to be. And also, you can't block a doorway with a cop.
No, you cannot.
Okay. And so my office is set up in such a way that I'm sitting across from him. This is 6 feet long.
Right. They're very long. Yeah.
Feet long. So I'm not right in his face. So he can have his space and he can deal with whatever's coming up in whatever way he needs to.
Right. So let's fast forward. Yeah. Go ahead.
See the door. He can see the door. Not that anyone has ever had to leave, but that's how they, that cops are. They're always back to the wall. I have to see the exit. So that's what I learned with my dad in a restaurant.
Right. Yeah, that my clinician was culturally competent from working with a lot of veterans. Same thing, very thoughtfully set up her office. So let's fast forward a bit and let's go to kind of the 8-minute mark and
Statement.
You're changing the statement now.
I did what I can.
Mm-hmm. Good. Let's go with that. All right. I want you to hold I did what I can with the image. And I'm going to slow this down. We're going to pair that together. So this is going to be a slower speed. Hold together I did what I can with the image.
You can hear the buzzing.
Can't, huh? I can't.
You can, yeah, we can on the video. Yep.
Okay. Wow, yeah. Let's do one more body scan. I want you to go back to the image, the worst part of it. Scan your body head to toe. See if there's any discomfort.
No.
All right.
All right. So there you go. I'm going to pause it here. And I'm going to take this down. So it kind of gave people where you came in. That's why I wanted to show what we were dealing with and the visual that you had.
I'm not asking Pete all sorts of details.
Right.
How did you feel when you saw the dead baby? You know, like this is not how you approach, first responders and combat vets. EMDR is, you let the client maintain their composure and their dignity. If they become emotional, okay, you just ride through it. But we don't stoke that fire, like they don't feel comfortable talking about it anyway. So, there's very little verbiage on my part. And he, at that point in the second clip, was at a 0. So we started at a 7 of confusion, and he went down to a 0. And as you notice, the reprocessing that happened, his negative belief in the beginning was, I'm new, I don't know what to do, which is like, it's a feeling of failure, to I did what I can, and which is the truth. And, he radioed for assistance, and then people who knew how to handle that situation, and then the detectives had to come in, and then the ambulance took the baby, and they dispatched the dog, and then it was resolved. Right. And so he has a different feeling about himself. The conclusion that he comes away with is kind of like, I did the best I could. And I'll tell you, probably the most common negative belief has to do with, I should have gotten there faster. I should have done something else. I coulda, woulda, shoulda,
we can should all over ourselves.
They should all over themselves. And it's guilt. Is what it is. It's guilt. And now you have these people that deal with the worst of what humanity has to offer. And yet at the end of the day, they're feeling bad about themselves. And it's just not right, So the more clinicians that we can get trained, that can help this.
It's a great book. It's a great book. If you're even not a clinician, if you're a family member of a first responder, it's a great read.
Chaplains, peer support team leaders. It'd be great if chiefs read it. It would be, and then we're getting good feedback from first responders themselves.
Yeah.
I can relate to that chapter on, EMTs.
100%. So I remember after my EMDR sessions, especially we did great work. I would want to have just a great cup of coffee. And it's one reason why John and we took a lot of time to figure out who we wanted to partner with. And East Texas Legends Coffee, founded by Ben and Amanda Holmes, reflects their journey from Ben's Marine Corps service and law enforcement career, overcoming post-traumatic stress to finding purpose in ranching. Relocating to an East Texas ranch, they identified a need for a local coffee brand. Now they're opening their first coffee shop in Lindale, Texas, rooted in faith, family, and community. Their mission? Inspire purposeful conversations over coffee. So drink coffee, be legendary. Go to etxlegendscoffee.com. Use promo code BADGE for 15% off coffee and merchandise. So coffee and merch. Again, etxlegendscoffee.com. Use promo code BADGE for 15% off. Love it. Merch.
Oh, there they go. All right.
Yeah. So, support.
My addiction is definitely coffee. I need that caffeine stimulation.
Yeah, right.
So,
Pete, I just want to ask Pete one question. Pete, when you shared the story with Stacy for the first time, when you were in that EMDR session, was that the first time you ever shared the story, or was it just stuck in your brain and you never really got it out?
Let's
shared it before.
I did share it before, but with Stacy, she opened a lot of doors and a lot of stuff came out.
Yeah.
That's what's so meaningful about the EMDR. It probably brought out things that you didn't remember about the scene that you went back and saw.
Yeah. We did it. We did it with that scene in Brooklyn. We did it with a cop suicide that was here, where I could tell you the details from body position to where the firearm was, to where the hidden alcohol was behind the TV, to what the clothing, the way the room smell, everything to a T. And then what I like about EMDR, it brings you down, to a good place. And if you watch the video in the last part, if you notice, my breathing was calmer.
Yeah, you weren't as tense. Your arms weren't as tense on the paddles either, because you could see your muscle movement. You could see your muscles starting to flex a little bit in your forearm at certain points during the questioning, and at the end, you were completely
relaxed. Yeah,
way
and
relaxed.
things were processed. We're up against time here. DrStacyRaymond.com. I'm going to put your website up here. If people want to get the video, because we're not going to give it out, if people want to watch the entire thing, can they just reach out to you?
They can just go to the website, click on first responders. It's there.
Okay. Well, there you go.
10-minute video, so it doesn't take a long time. And Pete mentioned the suicide. I did another protocol, it is EMDR. It's called Recent Traumatic Event Protocol. You can see that also on my website, where we approached 2-3 days after the suicide, so that it wouldn't become post-traumatic stress and stuck in his fight or flight part of his brain. We cleared that out 3 days later.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so you can go, for those of you listening on your favorite podcast app, DrStacyRaymond.com. You can watch those videos. Pete, thank you so much for being open to allowing her to put the videos together. It's going to help a lot of people who have questions about how does EMDR exactly work. We want to thank both of you for coming on. In addition to helping the helpers dump the bucket, which Pete
coming out,
she helped you dump the bucket. So that's the next book that's coming out. So stay tuned. You can reserve your copy now. Can't wait to read it. Thank you so much for writing that. And we'll definitely stay in touch and be in touch. Thank you so much for your time.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
To all the first responders, from firemen to EMT to police officers and stuff like that, they say asking for help is a sign of everybody thinks it's a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. When you ask for help, you also build trust. And if you're asking yourself, why am I doing this job? I don't care what first responder you are. Again, fire, police, EMTs. Why are you doing this job? If not us, then who? That's all I gotta say. And then get the help that you need. Reach out and get the help that you need. You're worth it.
Amen.
Right
Amen
on.
to that. Thank you guys so much again for coming on. We will be in touch.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay.
Wow, this is just totally eye-opening. So many insights. The replay will be up tomorrow. Watch it again so you don't miss any details. We want to thank Dr. Stacy. We want to thank Pete. Thank you to all of our first responders out there who, go out every single day. We're praying for you that you get home safely. Thank you for protecting our communities, keeping us safe. To all of our veterans out there, thank you for fighting the good fight that allows John and I to do a show like this every single week. And for those active duty personnel spread out across the globe, we are praying for you as well, that you will return home safely. Thank you, thank you, thank you for keeping our shores safe here in the good old USA. If you've got any questions, you want copies of stuff, you want to get in touch with Dr. Stacy, if you want to get in touch with Pete, just go to our website, abadgeofhonor.org. Pete said, get help. There's a whole list of our partners and resources on our website. Don't wait. Do the most courageous thing you can for yourself, abadgeofhonor.org. John, take us home.
And I'm going to echo what Pete said again, and what you just said. The hardest thing in the world is to ask for help, because we've been beaten down so much when people don't listen or they don't respond the way we feel that it should be responded to. But keep asking for help until you find that person that is going to be there to help you offload, be it a therapist, a friend, a chaplain, whatever it is. Just keep asking, because you will find that person.
Till next
Until
week,
next week.
everybody.
Peace.
Take care.
A Badge of Honor podcast is produced for the OBBN Network podcast and protected under copyright law. For content permissions, please submit your request to abadgeofhonor.com on the content page. For OBBN Network programming information, please call 214-714-0495 today.